Hello, welcome my dear friends. Why are we failing to achieve foundational literacy? What is the gaps? Very important to analyze, and we will be doing it in today's session. Welcome to the Foundational Literacy series, and I am Dr. Rajni Rao, your friend and coach. And in today's session, we will in detail, I am telling you, we will do this gap analysis in detail. What happens to phonics? What was phonics before 2000 and what is phonics after 2000? What is the gap that we notice at the age of 2 by playgroup, at the age of 3+ during nursery, 4+ during junior KG, 5+ senior KG and 6+ our class 1, because before the age of 7 we must attain foundational literacy. So let us see and also try to understand 5 main reasons, overall reasons for the failure of achieving the foundational literacy. So let's get to know this. Well, my dear friends, if I ask you, how did you and me learn English before 2000? Did we have phonics? No, we didn't have, or we didn't follow any phonology. We learned this language English as a whole language development in a traditional way. What do I mean by traditional way? That means through mugging, memorizing, multiple writing only we learned this language. Then around 2000, from the West, we got influenced by the term phonics. Now everybody wanted to teach letters or foundation literacy through phonics, but there wasn't a clear structure for our teachers to learn and implement phonics. Imagine if even today, if the teachers in the metros and cities don't know what is phonics, then what can we expect from the rural India? So suddenly there was a hype. Each and every parent walking into the school wanted to know if we taught letters through phonics. Every institution heads, even if they didn't know what is phonics, wanted a teacher who was well versed in phonics. And later it became so formal that any teacher who walked in with a phonics certified or certification would get a job. But truly speaking, phonics teaching was not achieved by many of the teachers. Of course, there are some exceptions and I am not talking about them, I am talking about the majority. So when there is a lack of training, when teachers are not trained to do this methodology and we send them into our classrooms, let us see what are the gaps. So the gaps at playgroup level, even playgroup is not a formal entry level, because most of the preschools operate the playgroup level classes. I would like to address few gaps that arises and how we can fix it also. So gap number 1, please have your 5-point checklist. Number 1, how about the motor development in the child, whether the child is ready with fine motor and gross motor development even before you start with the phonics. Number 3, sensorial development. Can this child see well, see and understand well, hear well? If you give the sounds, take the sounds, can the child hear well and use these 2 senses to further coordinate? That is body coordination, sensorial coordination. This is the 3rd point. Number 4 is patterns. Well, very important. So by the age of 2, the child should be able to understand or recognize the 6 basic patterns. And finally, the child should be singing English rhymes. Why I say the child should speak English rhymes? Because the tongue should now twist to speak English, to take the sounds. The child should develop that chin and cheek muscle, tongue twisting, everything. So they should sing a lot of nursery rhymes. So this is a 5-point checklist that you will have to ensure by the age of 2. If there is any gap in this checklist, then for sure it's a failure at the playgroup level. Now at the age of 3+, when the child come to class, no matter what, we introduce phonics through sounds. What will happen to this letter? You take all the initiative and you will not even take the letter name A. You will take the sound A. And tomorrow when the child come to class, when you show this flashcard, my dear friends, please tell me, will they not identify this as A? Why? Why is this happening? Is because our children is going back to the Indian environment. The people around the child don't know phonics. Parents, neighbors, family members, caregivers, tuition teachers, they don't know phonics, and they just ask the child, are you learning ABCD? How much of ABCD you know? Is your teacher teaching ABCD? These questions will take away all the phonics sense that you put in the classroom, and the child will start recognizing these letters as A, B, C, D. So this is a big gap. Then there are two more gaps at the nursery level. A confusion where should we introduce both the cases? Which case to introduce first? Should we introduce the uppercase or should we introduce the lowercase? Well, there is a lot of debate going around, but this is my personal suggestion that it is always best for us to introduce the uppercase of the letter for recognition. And again, when we do this, there is one more doubt for the teacher. Are you introducing A to Z in a series, or are you following the SAT-IPN? So there is a lot of confusion for the teacher. So please, if you ask me, I will justify this with examples. Please start with the A to Z series. You know, I'm making this statement with a lot of responsibility, which I will be justifying very, very soon. Next is the sound. At the age of 3 in the class, now the child identified this as A and the sound is A. Now my dear teachers, please tell me, the little brain inside the child's head which is supposed to learn, this organ has to learn, can this brain imagine the sound integration? This little brain, if you convert, the child is only 1000 days, within 1000 days of age, can the child even visualize, imagine a letter making the sound? This letter, this language is as it is a stranger language, a new language for the child, and beyond this you say this letter make a sound, the brain doesn't take this information and the child cannot understand what is a letter and what is the letter sound. So this is again the biggest gap at the age of 3+. So these are the main gaps that I am talking about. So the child will now reach junior KG with the same gaps. The teacher also continues with the same gaps. And now the biggest gap is, no matter what, you will have to introduce these two cases. At least by junior KG there is no option. Nursery there was an option, and in junior KG when I show these two letters and I say both these letters are same. Well, my dear teachers and my dear friends, if I show these two objects and tell these are same, this is big and this is small, will you agree? Please answer this honestly. Will you agree if I tell you, no matter I'll give any justification later, I'll explain any science later, but at the beginning, at the face level, do you agree that these both are same objects? If your brain is denying, what is denying inside you? If your brain is denying that they were not the same, then the child's brain also does not agree that these both letters are same. And further, when you start with uppercase, capital letters, bold letters, whatever you call it as, the child will not understand, and from here everything becomes rote. Teaching is also rote and learning is also rote. So this is the biggest challenge for the child to identify the two cases of the letter. And now as we go further, then sound and letter association. As I told you, this letter makes a sound. The child cannot mentally or cognitively understand the technique, how this letter is making a sound. So there is a big confusion, and later after the introduction of A to Z in both the cases, when we go with the vowel and consonant introduction, believe me, that's the worst thing that the child can experience in the class. We only say A, E, I, O, U are the best friends among the 26 letters, and they are called as vowels, and we just finish that and jump to the next concept, my dear friends, vowels are so important. And if I want to rate, I would rate it as 9 out of 10, which comprises the whole English literacy. 90% importance we can attribute to the vowels in the 26 letters. And we rush during this concept, which is very, very wrong. Next is the few words. Yes, I love to discuss this in detail. This video is getting long, but it is so much worth it when you understand it, my dear friends. Now look at these words, okay? This is our favorite way. You can see it on the screen as well. This is our favorite way to introduce the 3-letter words after we introduce vowels and consonants. And now this flower, though, you know, so creative we get while we do this. And when you introduce the 3-letter words with this formula, that is M plus AT, you may introduce this through sounds. So for the ease, I'll take the letter names, okay? So M plus AT, and you say mat, bat, cat, fat, as in these words. So if you see bat, rat, mat, fat, cat, and these words in this way, if you are teaching meg, man, this is mat, meg and mug. If we are doing this, then it's a blunder. It is a blunder. Why? When the child go to senior KG, look at this. How will the child try to read these words? The child will try to read these words in this way. Can you see? So now the child will try to read this as E plus AT, O plus AT, A plus I am, E plus EL, O plus AT in the phonic sounds, and the child can never read it and write it correctly. Why? Because in this method what you did is you blended the second and third sound together, then made the child join the first sound with the new blended sound, second and third. In both the cases it is very, very wrong, and the child, the brain has learnt this. You know, this organ has learnt this way, and now when you give these words, the brain will read these words in the very same manner, and then by the age of 5, if you try to correct, conflict arise. The child will not want to learn this language itself. He finds it very, very difficult to understand. Well, it was all okay till I read these words. What happened here? Well, MAT, mat is correct. Then what happens to EAT? So this is again a very big challenge. And now if you see here, I have already introduced the 5 levels of words. For example, AT is a fundamental 2-letter words. We make mat, MAT. These are primary words, and the next level of words. So if you see here, primary, and this is fundamental words and the primary words. And now look at these 3-letter words. So even before getting into this, I can also show you these words. Yes, look at these words. Do you think these are easy 3-letter words, just like cat, bat, rat, fat, sat, mat? No. Look at the challenges here. Okay, I will use my board for this. Okay, now look at this. Okay, I told you the child gets confused here, right? And now look at this spelling. What happens here? So the technical reason is there is a long vowel sound here. So one long vowel sound and a consonant, and we call this as secondary words, set 1, and in this word it is one long sound and one blending sound, consonant blending sound, and this is called as secondary words set 2. So set 1 and set 2 after fundamental and primary words. And now even if you know the blending sounds, the long vowel sounds, you cannot read these words. So can you see here? So the child can very easily read at, cat, and what happens to the same A sound in these words? Look here, at. So if you see this, it is only at. What happens to this word? Now this word becomes 8. How did the first sound become A? The child finds it very difficult. Now look at this. Even if you explain the magic E rule, look at the next word in the word acts. Why does the first sound again become short sound? A, as in axe. And now the child is so confused to read the next word, which is ago. Even if you take and do trial and error with the sound of A, short and long, what happens to the second and third sounds? A, G, O. Why is O long here? The child is clueless. Now look at the same variation of the word. The next word is age, and look at the sounds. The first sound is A and the next sound is not G, as in ago. The second sound, the letter is the same, but the sound is J. Why? Why did this G become J here? The child doesn't understand. And finally, look at the last word, all. The beginning sound is almost different than the short sound A and the long sound A. It's all, A. How will the child now understand? From 5 years of age, phonics becomes so difficult if the child is not taught in the right way. And by class 1, at the age of 6, there are some exceptions. For example, if you have taught the magic E rule in the junior KG, now look at these words. The word nose has a magic E. Then what happens to words like some, love, where the formation is the same? The child don't know which is the correct way to read and write. Similarly, the word 5, you can see give, live. All these words are similar category words, but they don't behave the same rule because there are some exceptions for the rules. And all the words with a rule in it are called as tertiary words. And now these are called the complex words, which has an exception for it, or compound words. So now it is so important for us to first teach these basics before class 1, because second standard we cannot do. By the age of 7, the child should have attained foundational literacy. And with all these gaps, hope you agree with me. And finally, what are the real sight words? Number names, ONE1, TWO2, all these words are non-reading sight words. No matter what, this doesn't fall under fundamental words, primary words, secondary words, set 1 and 2, tertiary words and compound arts. They are the complex sight words, non-reading words, and it is so difficult for the child to decide which is a reading word and which is a non-reading word. With all these gaps still present in our classroom, still every teacher is struggling how to fix this, still how every child and parent is struggling because of not understanding these concepts. How can we achieve foundational literacy? My dear teachers, parents and friends, please understand these gaps, and we will have to work out in resolving these gaps even before thinking big about foundational literacy. So quickly, let me give you 5 reasons why we are failing to achieve foundational literacy. The reason number 1 is because we don't have a suitable phonic methodology for the Indian environment. As I told you, everybody around the child is speaking in the letter, the traditional way, and the child will find it very difficult. Number 2, sustainable methodology which abides the golden triangle of success. When I say sustainable methodology, I am excluding the cream of the nation who know phonics. I am addressing the average teachers. So they don't have a methodology training module. Either it is too lengthy, or it is too expensive, or it is too demanding for them, or there is no initiative, there is no easy way to learn. Many more reasons like this makes it very intangible for the teacher to learn phonics. And now let me explain what is the golden triangle of success. So can you see here? The first part of the triangle is learn. The first thing should be the teacher or any educator. The methodology should be very, very easy for them to learn. Number 2 is teach. In every training workshops we go, we learn so many things, but tell me my dear friends, will you not find it difficult to come and implement the same in your classroom? Practically some few things are not possible for you to implement, then the methodology is failing in the second place itself. You cannot teach what you learned. Number 3, let's assume you learned it easily, you were able to teach it effectively in your classroom. If the child, the third stakeholder, cannot understand it or cannot practice that methodology, cannot take that methodology further and apply in real life, then the methodology fails at the third place, because the methodology should align the teacher and the child and the parent in one methodology. Only then we can exclusively achieve the foundation literacy together. If all 3 of us are doing it in different ways and different methodologies, then even 10 years from now we cannot achieve in a big picture, the whole India I am talking about. So this is not a sustainable methodology that we are practicing. Number 3, structured accessible training module, as I discussed, is not available for our teachers. Next point, so important, inclusion of this in our textbooks. The textbooks that the child will receive doesn't have any of these concepts. It only has picture book, word book. There is no understanding. And finally, the 5th point, lack of practice and accuracy building. Before sending to class 2 or by class 1 itself, can the child write 1000 words and more phonetically, which includes all the fruits, vegetables, trees, seasons, animals, birds, insects, reptiles, everything that he will need up to 5th standard. These are the spellings that the child need up to primary education and middle education. Is the child ready? Have we built the accuracy? We don't give a check about this, and we randomly promote the child for the next class. So from here, English becomes very difficult for them, spellings become very difficult for them. So eventually science become difficult, social studies become difficult, general knowledge, computer science, everything start getting difficult, and eventually what we see is the academic downfall. So my dear friends, it's quite a lengthy video. We had to do a detailed gap analysis. But if you are watching till the end, don't you think that you must share this video with all the teachers, understand the gaps, do something about that, and help me in doing my next job. So my dear friends, see you in the next episode. Till then,